views and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Outdoors People with me, C.W. Getz, and her, Maya Marzocchi. Good evening. It is Wednesday, January 18th, 2023. Yes, 2023. I have to get used to that, man. I mean, still back a year behind. Our weather here near Chicago, Illinois, is 37 degrees Fahrenheit. And for everyone else in the normal world, it is 3 degrees Celsius. And so, it's funny because I looked on my little screen here and it said, want to get the weather. And it said wintry mix. And I thought, well, where's no wintry mix? I'm looking outside. It looks nice. And all of a sudden, within 5 minutes, the wintry mix came. And so it's a little snow, a little sleet, all that kind of good stuff. What's your weather down there in São Paulo?
Yes, here we are in the middle of the summer, so it is 31 Celsius, and for you guys in United States, it is 87 Fahrenheit.
Oh, that breaks my heart because that is perfect temperature. I think that's just me.
Right.
Oh, you're so lucky. I think it's funny. You guys are in summer, we're in winter, so very, very different climates. But yes. Well, hey, a couple announcements here. First, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to our newly named show of Outdoors People. And it's going to take me a while to get used to that. Maya and I have been kind of doing a little rehearsing all week here. And I said, it's only a matter of time before I slip up and say that camping show. But thanks for tuning in to Outdoors People. Along with the new name, we'll be featuring a wide variety of outdoor sports, outdoor activities, and related topics. And of course, we'll be featuring a number of amazing outdoors people as well. So we hope you enjoy the new direction we're taking on the show. Also like to give a shout out tonight to our amazing friend, Rümeysa Aslan from Düzce, Turkey. I hope I said that right, Rümeysa, who's watching this show tonight. Rümeysa will be appearing on the Outdoors People show July 12th to talk about the proper foods for sustained energy. So we're really looking forward to it. And now I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce to everyone rock climbing expert, marketing specialist, and dear friend from São Paulo, Brazil, the one, the only, the new co-host of Outdoors People, Miss Maya Marzocchi. Welcome to the show, Maya.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
You a little nervous?
Such a pleasure.
Are you a little nervous your first show?
A little bit, but it's okay. I'm used to be nervous.
Oh, good. All right. So I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Well, tonight's
I'm really
episode,
excited.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I am glad at least you're excited, even if you're nervous a little bit. So that's good. That's a step in the right direction for sure. Well, tonight's episode of Outdoors People is brought to you by Rutabaga Paddle Sports, providing time on the water.
By Campground Views, making camping easier.
By Duluth Pack, made in the USA since 1882.
And by Jackson Kayak, pursuing joy through paddle sports.
Tonight's episode is What is Wild Ice Skating with our special guest, Luke Mell. 44-year-old Luke Mell grew up in McGrath, Alaska, a community of 350 people and an off-the-road system in rural Alaska. His childhood was spent feeding a dog team, collecting firewood, and visiting the family cabin by snow machine. After high school in Anchorage, he studied geology and geophysics for 10 years at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. After school, Luke moved to Anchorage, where he currently teaches swiftwater safety and rescue, ice safety and rescue, and trip and remote emergency planning. Luke is also the author of the Pack Raft Handbook that won 2021 National Outdoor Book Award and the Banff Mountain Book Award in 2022. The book has sold over 8,500 copies so far. He's currently writing a book and developing an online course for people interested in wild ice skating. To date, Luke has traveled over 10,000 miles of his home state of Alaska by means of hiking, skiing, pedaling, and ice skating over long distances and in wilderness settings. And with that, welcome to the show, Luke.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
How's you do? What's your weather up there in Alaska tonight?
We are, well, it's not yet tonight. It's mid-afternoon, and so that means we will have a little glimpse of the sun. I'll probably lose the sun here during our show.
Yeah.
It's in the mid-teens in Anchorage and kind of partly cloudy.
That's not too bad. You're a little colder than we are here, but yeah. So, but you got plenty of snow, from what I understand, right?
We had a lot of snow early season, and less now. It hasn't snowed in a while. But
okay.
comes and goes.
Well, yeah, we haven't had hardly any down here in Illinois, so which is fine. I'm good with that. Fine. I'm not a skier, so I'm not missing out on anything. But,
well, when there isn't snow, there's good ice skating, right? That's the plus.
Ice skating, absolutely. Maya, what did you say? I'm sorry.
No, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I don't know what is snow, right?
No, that's right.
But
Well,
I guess it's good for you, Luke.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. You did live in Maya. You lived in Canada, so you know a little about snow, just a little bit.
Yeah, I know a little bit.
For sure,
I was in Vancouver. It's not that cold.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me ask you, what is the term wild ice skating, or actually wild ice skating? Yes, actually mean. What is the meaning of that?
I don't think it's a super firmly established term or definition. In North America, wild ice is used, where in Northern Europe, Nordic skating would be used. And Nordic skating has been around for hundreds of years in those communities. And both are just referring to taking ice skating to the outdoors, to unmaintained ice destinations, ponds, lakes, rivers, and sea ice for some countries like Northern Europe.
Okay. So, I mean, is that kind of a fairly new term? I mean, wild ice skating, I mean, honestly, Nordic skating has been, but the term wild ice, is that fairly new?
Yeah, I feel like it's fairly new. I feel like I'm seeing it more. I don't know if it's just gaining popularity or if it has really been introduced in the last couple of years, but I definitely see it more and hear it more than I used to.
That's really cool. So that's a new whole thing for me. So how did you get started doing ice skating?
So even though I grew up in Alaska, I didn't do any skating as a kid. I remember maybe once or twice when my folks would shovel a path through the lake, like shovel the snow off the lake so that we could skate. And the skates was like a cardboard box full of skates. Who knows, where they came from and what sizes they were, but so uncomfortable skates that were cold and not on great ice. So I didn't grow up really appreciating or looking for ice. I went to college in Minnesota in the Midwest, the land of 10,000 lakes. And of course there, hockey was really popular. Broomball was really popular.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I spent quite a bit of time playing broomball. I loved broomball. I skated once in college, joined some friends. They convinced me to play hockey with them. And I said, I'm not a good skater. I'm not sure this is a good idea. And they said, oh, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And I was fine, but I collided into a friend because I couldn't stop, and I cracked his jaw.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So that's my background.
Were you friends after you did that? I mean,
honestly, he didn't tell me for years because, obviously it was an accident and I felt terrible even not knowing that I cracked his jaw. But yeah, he had problems with his jaw for years. I felt bad. And that was purely I just didn't have control, didn't have skate control.
Yeah.
So despite all of that,
you get better.
Yeah, exactly. Despite all of that, I came home, after being out of state for 10 years for college and grad school, and just absolutely fell in love with skating. And mostly it was because I was skating outdoors, like on canoe lake systems or on rivers or sloughs. And so it was very different than being in town or in an indoor rink.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you didn't start really young, but I guess it was in your blood. So we will be back with more outdoors people right after these messages.
A few years ago, someone asked Rutabaga's owner, Darren Bush, "Hey, how long have you guys been selling boats?" Darren replied, "Well, we don't sell boats. We sell time on the water. Of course, that comes in all types. We help people paddle more safely with Rutabaga outdoor programs. We rent canoes, kayaks, and stand-up paddleboards. We sell and install racks to get you from home to adventure. Rutabaga's got everything you need to get you out on the water, like paddles, life jackets, dry bags, and clothing. Rutabaga Paddle Sports, on the web at rutabaga.com. Mention you saw this ad on The Camping Show.
It is time to go camping. Introducing Campground Views virtual tours. You can tour the campground, see the sites, see if they are available, and click to book your perfect spot. Hit the open road and explore the amazing places found in nature. We make it easy to discover, find, and book your site so that you can go have the fun and freedom you seek. Campground Views virtual tours make it easy and simple for you to see where you are going.
Duluth Pack is handcrafted for every lifestyle, making memories since 1882. In store at 365 Canal Park Drive or online at duluthpack.com.
We're one big family, a community of paddlers, and we want to make sure that everyone has a great time out on the water.
We are made right here in Sparta, Tennessee, USA.
This is where every Jackson kayak is born. Built by hand with a focus on innovation.
We are Jackson Kayak.
We are
Jackson Kayak.
We're Jackson Kayak.
We are Jackson Kayak.
And we're back with our guest, Luke Mell, here on Outdoors People. We've got some photos and a couple of videos, at least one video I know of that Luke sent. Can we have you put those up and we'll take a look at those? Yeah, what are we looking at here, Luke?
This is a glacial lake. That's obviously the glacier part in the background that comes into season not every year, but some years. And it is a prize to get the conditions right to go out there, just because, I mean, imagine skating with that background.
Luke, what makes that snow, or that ice rather, look blue like that? Is that just a reflection of sky or what?
It is not a reflection of sky, and I don't honestly fully understand it, but it's something about how ice absorbs light, and it absorbs all of the other colors of the spectrum, but not blue. And so blue is what we see. That's what's reflected back.
It looks painted. It looks like somebody put some food coloring on that.
It looks unreal. Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. I love it. This looks like a background I saw on Ice Truckers. Luke, this was, you ever seen that show? Like, there's nothing, you can see nothing past. I
haven't seen this show, but I've been digging into the ice road engineering literature to kind of understand ice strength and ice failure.
Yeah.
And it's been a really helpful resource.
So
this is a larger lake in southern Alaska, and just whiteout conditions. And you can see those, we call them frost flowers, these little individual crystals of hoarfrost that grow on the ice surface. Real pretty setting. And the ice is solid underneath, just bomber fast ice. That's
can I ask,
fresh crack.
I have to ask, how the hell do you know you're at out there when it's like that? Because there's no roads or anything. How do you know?
We're navigating with either a GPS unit or more often with our phones, with navigation apps on the phones.
Wow. That's got to be a weird feeling, I'm sure.
It's an awesome feeling. I mean, I love that part, just exploring, right? It's an opportunity to explore, and you don't leave any footprints. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Oh, it looks scary as hell to me, but yeah.
That's why he likes.
Yeah,
It is scary.
There's a beautiful picture.
Yeah, and this is a shallower setting. This is a marsh. And part of what I love about the outdoor skating or the wild ice skating is that, I mean, this is never an area I would visit in the summer because it's a marsh. You can't walk through it. You could probably barely paddle through it, but it's gorgeous, obviously. And so to be able to visit in the winter is a real treat.
You know, that's interesting. You can't really paddle through it. You certainly couldn't walk through it, but you can skate on it. So now you can go on territory you couldn't go on otherwise. That's cool.
Yeah, it really opens up some of the horizon.
Yeah, nice, beautiful picture, by the way.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful place.
And this is pretty close to our home in Anchorage, and my wife, and just out exploring what we can. This is a slough, so probably some brackish water, and just on the other side of that grass is Cook Inlet, is the ocean water.
Interesting. What kind of boat are we looking at there?
I have no idea. One that's not very functional.
It looks like from the war or something, some sort of armored, and how did it get there in the marsh instead of in the water where it's real water? I mean, that's just, there's got to be a story there, right?
We have huge tides here that we can have, 20-foot tides, and maybe a high water plus storm event probably brought that in, something like that.
Wow, that's interesting. It's an interesting looking boat as well.
Looks like a house.
Yeah, it had some bunk space in it, and I don't know if you can tell on your screen, but there's somebody put up little Christmas lights around the windows as a after effect, like since it got stuck. And so I can imagine driving the road and seeing the Christmas lights there. I love that.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
I saw those. I'm like, wait, what? What is that? I thought they were bullet holes or something. It looks like the gunboat or something. It could have been.
No, there's a small solar panel that's attached to those.
Wow. They did it
Cool.
right. Cool. Okay, so we've got, Juan just told me we've got one video, and this is kind of cool. I really like this, so let's watch that.
Oh my gosh. It seems so cold. How you guys can handle? Oh my gosh.
That one is cold. I think that was a sub-zero Fahrenheit day. So everybody was really bundled up for it.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, let me ask you, when you're skating, you can hear, and I've been ice skating. I actually like it. I actually didn't do really terribly at it the first time I tried it, but there's a sound, and it sounds like the ice is cracked. It's kind of like that ice road truckers thing I was telling you about. Is that's not ice cracking? What is that sound? Is it just the way ice sounds when you skate over it, or is it rough ice, or what is that?
Yeah, I think it's just ice is an elastic medium, meaning that when you load it, it bounces back. And so you generate a sound wave during your motion over the ice. And the cool thing for me is that as the source of that sound wave, I don't hear it. But my partner, yeah, exactly. You have to be, I can hear it bounce off of rocks if I'm skating next to like a rock band. Otherwise, I would need to hear somebody else. And the other thing that's cool is that the pitch is proportional to the thickness. So high pitches indicate thin ice and low pitches indicate thick ice. And so if I'm out there and I hear a little like Star Wars laser beam, that's like red alert. That's a thin ice warning.
Wow.
And if I hear coconuts clonking, then I think, okay, sweet, we got some thick ice here.
That's interesting. Wow. And how did you learn that? I mean, is that kind of the trial and error thing, or is that something you read and go, okay, well, that makes sense?
It's a mix. And especially in the research I've been doing to put together this online course and the book that I'm working on, it's a really cool mix of things that I've figured out or had theories about based on my own time on the ice, and then academic resources and reading about the ice road engineering, and then also leaning on what the Northern European skaters have already put together. And a lot of that information is not in English. That's the hard part. But those communities have been skating for a long time, and they have their whole suite of tricks and safety protocols and everything. So it's a combination of all of those.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Well, let me ask you, what is the best way to discover wild ice?
I think, at the most basic level, it's just going outdoors. And I know there are some groomed and maintained outdoor skating destinations, but there are a lot that aren't. And this is not unique to me or to Alaska or anything, but it's like, if you're going out to the such and such a pond in Illinois or Minnesota, like that is wild ice skating. Then if you are looking to, it's one thing to go somewhere that Parks and Rec has said, yep, the ice is safe, or maybe a social like a Facebook group or something that said, yep, ice is good to go. And then it's something else to maybe be looking for that, to be the first person testing the strength, looking for signs of weakness or instability. And I think we'll get more into that about what you need to pay attention to and what can go wrong. But at the base level, to discover wild ice skating is just to grab your skates, whatever you got, and go outside with them.
Really interesting.
It's like you try it out, but it feels like it's not something like safe. You must know something before start ice skating, right?
I mean, yes and no. Like, for example, my wife and I did a trip out of Bethel, Alaska. It's a community. You have to fly to it, no roads. And we were going to start on river ice, and I generally try to avoid river ice. But we are nervous about, is this a smart thing to do? What if the ice is too thin? And we're literally standing there having this conversation, and a semi truck drives by. Like, not a truck, a semi, a full-size semi. And this is in a town that doesn't even have like road access, So anyway, it was very surreal. But if I'm out skating somewhere and I see a semi go by on the ice, I'm thinking green light. I really don't have to be too worried, other than falling on the ice. But that's pretty unique, right? To have that. If I'm going somewhere where I don't know that it would support a semi or a truck or a snow machine or whatever, that's when I start paying more attention to looking for weakness, testing the ice strength, and doing that throughout the outing.
And look, between rivers and lake for ice skating, there is a preference?
Yeah, for me, the challenge with rivers is that there's current, and that current can delay ice growth, and it can also erode ice growth. And you might not be able to see any sign of that. So if I'm on a section of lake ice and I measure that it's 4 inches thick here, 10 centimeters thick here, it's probably 10 centimeters thick over there too. But that's not true on rivers. So rivers are a lot, I mean, scary is kind of a strong word, but you just have to be a lot more attentive to what's going on and maybe do a lot more measuring on rivers.
I have to mention this today. Just today, Maya asked me, she said, I can't imagine rivers would freeze. I said, well, they do, because our rivers freeze here sometimes, and we have a problem with that with barges. But what you said makes perfect sense, because they are the last to freeze, are they not?
I don't know if we could make a blanket statement like that, but that current it transports warmer water into the environment continuously. It's like a conveyor belt. Mm-hmm. And so that can slow the freezing. The reason I'm not willing to make a blanket statement is that lake ice the water has to completely overturn the water that was on the bottom of the water column. It gets thoroughly mixed up until the whole water column is the same temperature before the top will cool and freeze. And that can take a long time. And it takes even longer in sea ice, in salty water. So it's, it depends on the size of the river and the volume and all of that too. But some rivers can freeze before some lakes, for sure.
Well, you may have already addressed this, but how exactly do you determine? I mean, is there more than one way? I'm sure. How do you determine that the ice that you want to skate on is, in fact, safe for skating?
Yeah, well, the rescue community would say no ice is safe ice. And
really?
And yeah, like absolutely.
Why would they do that? Why would they say that?
Well, this is the fire department that is called when somebody breaks through the ice. So they know the ice is suspect.
Yeah.
I struggle with that again, I kind of avoid these strong statements that definitive statements. And part of that's because if I see a semi drive over it, I'm like, yeah, it's probably just fine for me to go.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, you're going to drive a truck on it. I think I'll be okay to skate, wouldn't you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and you're right, there are a lot of different ways to gauge ice strength. And early in the winter, thickness is a pretty good proxy for strength. And we talked about the sound, like you can use sound. Some people have perfect pitch. I don't really know what this means. I certainly don't have it. But I think if you had the right brain, you could probably hear those little Star Wars lasers and be like, yep, 3 centimeters. And that would inform what you would do for that day. For the rest of us that don't have those skills, I carry, it's a ski pole, but with a heavy steel tip. in the ice fishing community, these are called spuds or ice chisels. It's the same idea with all of them, which is that it's got some extra mass, and you just jab at the ice, smack, smack, smack the ice. In the old days, these were axes. I read a passage from what was he? A missionary on the Yukon River in Alaska, 100 years ago, and he said if the ice could withstand 3 smacks of his axe, that meant it was okay for him to take his dog team out.
Oh wow!
So these are really just, pretty wild, right?
And that's really good to know, before you go there. But if someone falls through the ice, what do you do?
Well, there's a few things. I guess the first thing I would emphasize is the experience of the person that's falling through. And the rescue professionals, medical professionals have broken this down into a few stages. And the first thing that happens is called cold shock. And that's where, understandably, your body is like, crap, this is wet and cold and uncomfortable. But we have this reflex, so you have no control over it. It's a gasp reflex, or also called a torso reflex, where the body says red alert, and it wants to take in a bunch of oxygen and trap it in the lungs. It's like preparing for this bad thing that's about to happen. And if you're on land, that makes sense, and that's a good reaction. But if you're in the water, especially if your face goes under the water, then that gasp can bring in a bunch of water. And that can cause panic, it can cause hyperventilation. And so what the people that research close calls and fatalities on lakes and rivers, they see a lot of fatalities that are due to panic within that first 10 seconds or minute of immersion in the water. And so
it is not, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, it is not just about the coldness. It is about how the person gets nervous and get anxious. It's not just about the ice and the cold.
That's exactly right. And that's a common misconception. Most people are really worried about hypothermia, and you'll hear they died of hypothermia. Most fatalities in the water are dying from swimming failure, not from hypothermia. It takes a longer time to get hypothermia. The way to, what I do teach in classes as far as how to prepare for that surprise immersion is just to, whatever it takes, it's a brain challenge really, that it's going to get better. And I just need to relax and be calm and recontrol my breathing. Because once you do that, you've got another 10 minutes where you can use your arms and your legs. You can plan out your rescue and climb out of the ice. I'll talk about that in a second, but let me finish this scenario of me potentially being stuck in the water.
Okay.
They break it down into these, it's a kind of a guideline. 1 minute that you have to control your breathing, 10 minutes that you have to use your arms and legs. The reason you only have 10 minutes is because your body, it shunts a bunch of blood to your core to keep all that blood as warm as possible. But that means that you lose muscle and tendon control, and you lose it progressively. So you just physically lose the ability to do that work and to hold something or to swim somewhere. So the sort of rule of thumb is that you've got 10 minutes to do that. If at the end of that time you're able to hold on to the ice shelf or hold on to some buoyant device, somebody threw you a cooler or threw you a life vest that you could hold on to, you've actually got a full hour before you're likely to go unconscious. And that's really where hypothermia sets in. But most people either don't make it that far, don't get hypothermic, or are rescued within that hour. That's the good news.
Interesting. Wow.
I forgot the thing that you asked, and I said I'd answer it in a second. What did you ask?
Oh boy. I guess it was about the coldness, but I guess you answered me. But I have a new question, actually.
I remembered that I forgot. I remember what I wanted to say was the part of climbing out, because I didn't say how you would do that. We all carry ice picks around our neck, and they're pretty basic. They're just like exposed nails, and some of them have like spring-loaded devices, and some of them you wear in a harness around your neck. But with all of them, the idea is that it gives you traction when you're reaching out onto the ice shelf. And so the strategy here is that once I went into the ice and once I regained my calm and regained my breathing, I would turn around in the water to go back the way that I came from. It's kind of like the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. You don't know what the ice strength is in front of you, but you know that what was behind you supported you. So you go back and you get up onto that ice shelf with your arms, with your forearms, and you use these picks for traction. And then the key is really to lift your legs up like you're swimming in a pool so that the legs aren't dangling down, and make some gentle kicks and these short stabs with the ice picks. And with practice, it's actually pretty darn easy. It's something we practice without going into the water. We'll just get down on our bellies on the ice and pass the picks around and make sure everybody's comfortable with this, like building the muscle memory for it.
That's cool. So you also can rescue yourself. But after that, what do you do next?
Yeah, ideally it's a self-rescue. That's best case scenario for everyone. And if that's not a possibility, then you would try maybe an extension rescue where you'd throw a rope or maybe tie a bunch of pants together, something to just get them something to hold on to, jumper cables, branches, lumber, a ladder, to get them something to hold on to and help pull them out of the water. And for either a self-rescue or that extension rescue, that partner rescue, then what you're asking about, like, that person's soaking wet and it's cold out. What do you do now? Yeah. And so now is when you start thinking about hypothermia. And as long as there's wet clothing on the skin, the body loses a ton of heat. Either wet water, like being in the water, or just wet clothing, ton of heat. So an early priority is to get them out of the wet clothing and into dry clothing. We all carry a dry bag in our backpacks that's got a full set of clothing, like puffy pants, puffy jacket, long johns, hat, gloves, socks, so that we're ready to dress somebody out as soon as they get out of the water. And then it's hot fluids, hot sugary fluids. And actually the sugar ends up mattering more than the heat of the fluid. Yeah, that's something I didn't know until more recently. And doing everything you can to prevent further heat loss. The body is just in a position where it's just dumping a bunch of heat and you can't afford to have it dump heat. So it's getting shelter, getting them warm. If they've been in the water for any amount of time, it's getting transit to a medical facility to treat them for hypothermia.
Very cool.
So now all those films that I haven't seen, that people who falls in the water, in the ice, just go out and get naked and, try to warm up without clothes in the ice, make total sense for me right now. Thank you very much for explaining that.
Very good.
And we'll be back with more of Outdoors People right after these messages.
A few years ago, someone asked Rutabaga's owner, Darren Bush, "Hey, how long have you guys been selling boats?" Darren replied, "Well, we don't sell boats. We sell time on the water." Of course, that comes in all types. We help people paddle more safely with Rutabaga outdoor programs. We rent canoes, kayaks, and stand-up paddleboards. We sell and install racks to get you from home to adventure. Rutabaga's got everything you need to get you out on the water, like paddles, life jackets, dry bags, and clothing. Rutabaga Paddle Sports, on the web at rutabaga.com. Mention you saw this ad on The Camping Show.
It is time to go camping. Introducing Campground Views virtual tours. You can tour the campground, see the sights, see if they are available, and click to book your perfect spot. Hit the open road and explore the amazing places found in nature. We make it easy to discover, find, and book your site so that you can go have the fun and freedom you seek. Campground Views virtual tours make it easy and simple for you to see where you are going.
Duluth Pack is handcrafted for every lifestyle, making memories since 1882. In store at 365 Canal Park Drive or online at duluthpack.com.
We're one big family, a community of paddlers, and we want to make sure that everyone has a great time out on the water.
We are made right here in Sparta, Tennessee, USA.
This is where every Jackson kayak is born, built by hand with a focus on innovation.
We are Jackson Kayak.
We are
Jackson Kayak.
We're Jackson Kayak.
We are Jackson Kayak.
And we're back with our guest, Luke Mell, here on Outdoors People. Luke, give us just a couple of quick little stories. Tell us a little bit about your wild ice skating multi-day trips, if you would, please.
Yeah, these, I never intentionally went out. Well, I did eventually. I guess initially I didn't plan like, oh, I want to do a multi-day ice skate trip. But for me, I do a lot of wilderness trips, like week-long trips, 100-mile, 200-mile trips, and the key is efficiency. And so, like, if a section can be biked, we want to bike it. If a section can be skied or floated, we want to ski it or float it. And I planned a trip in Western Alaska, and we got reports that there's no snow. This is like a February trip. There's no snow. And I thought, well, if there's no snow, then maybe we can skate on the ice. I knew the river was frozen. So we brought skates on that trip, and sure enough, we were able to skate 50 miles in the first 2 days. And it was just like, this is amazing, partly because it was easy physically to cover that ground. It's, having that little runner of steel on ice is the most efficient travel that is possible. We can go 10 miles an hour at times.
I was just going to ask you, you can do 50 miles in 2 days. That's incredible.
Oh yeah. I've had several days now where we go 50 miles in a single day. We had another trip, that trip where we saw the semi, my wife and I, we had a tailwind, and this was part of the plan. We knew there'd be a north wind, so we're traveling north to south, and we're just getting blown along. We started around noon and stopped around 6 p.m. and went 70 miles in that day. And at one point there, we pulled over to take a break, just get cookies and hot water. And it was uncomfortable to sit there with the wind pounding at our backs. And so we actually ended up standing up for our break and just standing side by side and passing the thermos back and forth as we got blown down the ice. And it was just like, are you kidding me? Like, we're getting away with this right now?
That's interesting. Wow.
And Luke, you also teach, is that correct?
Yeah, I teach swiftwater safety in the summer, and I've been doing that for a number of years. And I'm just now sort of recognizing the growing popularity of Nordic skating and wild ice skating. And so I'm adding ice safety to that. And a lot of it is this sort of trying to help people adopt the mindset of constantly checking the ice strength throughout the day. And we talked about it briefly with using sound, but we use these ice poles. You can use a screw or a drill to measure the thickness of the ice. You can use a saw to look at the ice and smack it and see how it falls apart. So those are all things that I've built into an online course and that I do in person. The in-person instruction is mostly the rescue part, like how to get out of the water yourself and how to help somebody out of the water if they need help.
Luke, let me bring up something here. Gauging ice strength during an outing. What is there to that? I mean, how do you know? You're going along, and how do you know if you run into something?
Yeah. Well, so the best way to gauge ice strength would be to measure it, physically measure it. And our best tool for that really is to smack it with that axe or with that pole. But if you did that every 4 feet, you wouldn't make any progress, right? Your day
You're not
would
going
be
70
spent.
miles in a day. That's for sure.
You're not going to cover 70 miles.
Right.
So we take a shortcut, and the shortcut is I'm going to assume that ice that looks uniform has similar strength, has similar thickness. And I'm going to look for transitions. And transitions in ice, sometimes it's a step down where there'll be old ice that was thicker and buoyant, so it rose up in the water column, and the new ice that formed up against it, there'll be a little bit of a step. So I'll look for that, and if I see that, then I test at that new ice location. Likewise, those pictures we've had of these frost flowers at the start of this your show, sometimes there will be a zone that shows a real dense array of all of those frost flowers, and then a pocket next to it that has many fewer frost flowers. And I think, that must not have been exposed to the air as long. That's newer ice. And so I test that ice. So basically, we test it at each transition. And those tools are the ice pole or the spud, sound, also stepping on the ice, because if I can get the ice to crack under my weight, that's a warning sign. And different cracks mean different things. I don't know if we might not have time to go into that much detail, but that's the kind of stuff that's in the course. Those are all the tools that I go into evaluating it throughout my outing, even if the outing is just an hour or if the outing is 2 days, same idea.
Well, now let me just get a picture here. You're taking packs down, and again, these are rivers. Some of these are rivers. This is where you're skating. You're taking packs just like we would take in a canoe or backpacking, for instance. And you're cruising down there instead of hiking, instead of walking, whatever, instead of paddling, you're skating. You're doing the same damn thing, though. You're taking stuff out your pack. You're setting up camp. You're setting up a tent. You got a tent on your back, maybe a tarp, some cooking utensils, and clothes and all that sort of stuff. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That first story I told you about where we realized there was river ice and decided to bring our skates. We had 80-pound packs for that trip. It was
I was just going to ask you that. Yeah. What
yeah.
2-week
trip, and we were covering 250 miles or something. We had skis as well, because we thought, well, at some point we'll run out of ice and hopefully we'll find snow, and we did.
Oh, really?
But yes, we have the full winter camping kit with us.
Wait, you're toting skis as well? Did you say?
Not on all these trips, but on that one we did.
That one, wow.
Well, the skates we're using, they are a flat platform that you can put a ski binding on. So I'm wearing ski boots, and I have the same boot, same binding, and I can just step back and forth between skis and ice skates.
Interesting.
That's cool. You guys go like heavy and prepared.
Well, that's an end member of what I do, and a bunch of the other trips I do are just a day or a half day or an overnight or a couple nights. But I don't want to carry 80 pounds, so that one was a necessity.
Does that get heavy? I mean, it's got to. I mean, I'm like 40 pounds max on a maybe 45 on a pack. But
yeah,
I have to portage. You're doing that for what, 50, 70 miles, man.
But if you ask me, do you want to carry 80 pounds on skis? Do you want to carry 80 pounds on ice skates? Do you want to carry 80 pounds on foot? And I want to do it on the ice skates. That's still the most efficient travel, partly because it's perfectly flat. You don't have to worry too much about elevation.
There's that.
Yes, that's true. Because I'm thinking here, like I carry lots of heavy stuff in my backpack, but I do hikings and trekkings, just go up for the mountain. So I guess it's kind of different, right? And where can people follow you on the web and also sign up for your classes?
Yeah, I have a website. I see it's on the bottom of the screen here, things to look at. This is kind of a regretful pun that I did. My brother has a studio in New York called Things to Look At, and this was my in the family joke. I made a website and I was like, haha, look what I'm doing. And here I am 20 years later trying to do it as a business.
You still got it. I love it.
And I still got it. And every time I put it on, because I work with some military professionals and search and rescue groups, and I'm always like, oh, this isn't very professional to
use wisely at first, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got a bunch of resources on that website, about skating equipment and about the courses that I teach. That's the place to go, and it's a mix of resources and trip reports and pretty pictures and videos.
Interesting. Well, Luke, you're a very knowledgeable man about all this stuff. I'm kind of fascinated because you and I talked, of course, before the show, not so much today, but it was very interesting. All the things that there are, all aspects there are to wild ice skating. Something you wouldn't have to worry about at a skating rink, obviously. But when you got a pack on your back and you weigh, I don't know what you weigh, Luke, but I'm guessing 80 pounds plus there's 250 pounds ish somewhere in there. That's a lot of weight, man. And you really better know what you're doing, or you could be in a lot of trouble, it sounds like. So
yeah, but I think with all this outdoor stuff, it's at least what is working best for me is to tippy toe out onto it to take baby steps into a new sport or a new location and just test things out. I'm doing that on the lake. Literally, I'm just like, what does this feel like on the edge? And if it feels good and I do my tests and I'm like, yeah, I'll go out a little bit further. And then maybe next year I'm ready for an overnight trip, and maybe next year I'm ready for an expedition. So it's just like any of these outdoor pursuits I know that you can both relate to. It's just being on the learning curve, and part of that's really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it makes perfect sense. And I think it's a very cool, very, very cool thing. So, well, Luke, thank you for being our guest here on Outdoors People. It was a pleasure having you here with us.
Thank you. Yeah, I love talking about this stuff. As you can tell, it's hard to get me to stop.
It's cool when people are passionate, man. I love that.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it. If I would, I could still hear the whole night, hearing your histories. That's so cool. I really like it. Thank you very much for being here. And we also like to thank each of our sponsors for bringing you tonight's show: Rutabaga Paddle Sports, Campground Views, Duluth Pack, and Jackson Kayak.
Be sure to tune in for next week's episode, Clean Nutrition and Staying Active as We Age, with our special guest, Kim Alexis. Until then, thanks for tuning in to Outdoors People. See you next week.
Ciao.